Hey there, welcome to The Magic in the Music. I'm Jen. Today we are going to be talking about DVC Home Resort. What is a Disney Vacation Club home resort and how do you choose one? I'm going to help you out with that today. Let's get right to it. The first thing you need to know is, well, what is a DVC home resort? Disney Vacation Club is a deeded real estate interest in a property. So it's really important that you select a property that you would like to purchase your contract at. A lot of DVC members refer to it as their home. And if you meet other people that have the same home resort, sometimes they'll say, hi neighbor. They'll refer to each other as neighbors as well. One of the most important things for you to know about your DVC home resort is that booking at the 11-month window is only possible at your home resort. 11 months before the date that you wish to check in, you may book a stay at your Disney Vacation Club home resort. Only the owners at that resort can book at that time, and each contract has its own separate home resort. Now, of course, as you probably know, all Disney Vacation Club owners are eligible to switch resorts at the 7-month window when you reach 7 months, so 4 months later. If anything is still available that you wish to get, you may swap out your reservation for a different reservation. And as you can imagine, that opens up a lot of reservations at people's home resorts. So a lot of switching starts to happen at that time. Now, this is great because sometimes you can get some really amazing rooms at other resorts that are not your home resort. But if you end up traveling at any particularly busy times, or if you really want to get a room at a resort that is difficult to book, it's challenging to book and very competitive, you are going to need to have that as your home resort so that you have that 11-month booking window so that you can be sure that you get the vacation reservation that you want. Okay, next up, selecting a home resort. Now, sometimes this is really easy and obvious and you just fall in love with the resort and you know which one you want. Now, other people, they have to look around a little bit and make a decision. Choosing your home resort is a really important decision. The most common advice that you're going to hear about this is buy where you want to stay. And again, that's what I mentioned before. If you get stuck in a time where availability is tight, having that home resort booking advantage where you want to stay is really ideal, especially if you like to travel at really busy times, like from Christmas to New Year's or maybe spring break. Those are times where it's really important for you to have your home resort be a place that you really do want to stay. I always think that it should be a place that you really want to stay. Yes, it is possible to own contracts at more than one resort, and we do that, and we love it. So a variety of factors are going to impact your home resort selection, so let's talk about those right now. First up is the location. Now, there are some really obvious ones. First of all, if you want to go to Disneyland, if you want to go to Aulani in Hawaii, if you want to go to Hilton Head Island, if you want to go to Vero Beach, those resorts are the only Disney Vacation Club resorts in those locations. If those are the places that you want to travel frequently, then you need to own points at those specific resorts. Now, the other category is people like us who like to travel to Disney World quite often. And in this category, it's much more complex. It's a much harder choice because we have so many different resorts that are located at Disney World. There are 11 resorts, or kind of 12 if you separate out the two different sections of Animal Kingdom Lodge. So 11 or 12 resorts at Disney World. Some things that you need to think about when you're selecting your resort is really reflect on how you like to travel, what your tastes are, what your habits are, and what you want to do in the future. So think about what your favorite theme parks are, where you tend to spend the most time. So you really have to think about that and then think about proximity to those places in terms of resorts. So a major factor to consider when selecting your home resort is availability. Certain resorts are very difficult to book while others are not so difficult. If you want to stay at Grand Floridian, that is pretty difficult to book. It's a fairly small resort. If you want to get a standard view studio at Bay Lake Tower, or if you want to stay at Beach Club, or you want a tower studio at Riviera, or if you want a value studio at Animal Kingdom Lodge, you absolutely need to own at those resorts if you hope to stay in those rooms with any kind of regularity. Yes, every now and then there could be an amazing situation where you score one, but that's really tough to get. And you have to be realistic about that. On the other hand, if you like staying at Old Key West or you want to stay at Saratoga Springs, you are in luck because those rooms are much, much easier to book and they tend to be available the longest, especially Saratoga Springs. A friend of mine refers to Saratoga Springs as the resort of last resort. And look, there are some people who adore Saratoga Springs. We've stayed there and we had a great experience, but it is the biggest resort with the most rooms, so it books up last. So it's the one that you're probably going to get if you can't get anything else. Another factor for choosing your home resort is the cost. There is a huge variation between different resorts in terms of their cost. You'll notice that newer resorts tend to have higher per point prices because they have more contract life left. And then some of the older resorts are less expensive. And then there are anomalies, like everyone loves Beach Club. It's never really goes down in price. Obviously, Grand Californian, because it's the only DVC property at Disneyland, it is always popular and always very expensive. Another thing to think about is that the different contracts have different expiration dates. So the earliest ones start coming around at 2042, and you're going to be having to think about where you might see yourself in your life at that point. So where am I going to be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? How old will I be? What do I anticipate doing? Do I have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren? Who knows what your situation might be? Another factor to consider is maintenance fees. Maintenance fees are the annual fees that you pay to maintain the resort and to pay the staff at the resort. These continue and they go on and they typically go up a small amount each year. They are not all the same. Some of them are actually several dollars apart per point, and that can make a huge difference. I know a lot of people will look at Vero Beach or Hilton Head and they'll say, well, these resorts are so much less expensive, I'll just buy this and I'll save all this money. Well, if that's not where you want to stay, I would not recommend purchasing those resorts as your home resort because the maintenance fees are much higher on those resorts because they are along the ocean. They're beachfront, and so they have more costs involved. So though there's really kind of a complex thing, you're going to want to look at the list and review the maintenance fees for the resorts that you are considering. Another thing to consider is that certain resorts have very special features about them, and sometimes those features are the reason you want to own at that resort. Beach Club has an absolutely amazing pool called Stormalong Bay. Another great reason to buy Beach Club would be quick, easy walking access into Epcot at the International Gateway. The Riviera has access to the Skyliner and quick access to both Hollywood Studios and Epcot via the Skyliner. All of the monorail resorts have easy access to the Magic Kingdom. You can walk from Bay Lake Tower directly into the Magic Kingdom in just minutes. So there might be some special features about certain resorts that really, really speak to you. One of my favorites, Animal Kingdom Lodge, has a savannah outside the hotel rooms. A savannah! It's amazing. I love it. Honestly, the first second I stepped foot in Animal Kingdom Lodge, I turned to my husband and I said, we're going to have to go home and shop for a resale contract here because I loved it. I loved everything about it, including that savannah. So some places, they just really, really resonate for you. The next thing you're going to want to consider when you select your home resort is transportation. Again, we're really talking about Disney World resorts here because you have 11 or 12, depending on how you count, different resorts that you can choose from. If you always bring a car to Disney World, if you drive or you rent a car, this is probably not going to be as big an issue for you. However, we do not normally rent a car. We like to use Disney transportation, and a lot of guests love that. That's one of the things that's so wonderful about Disney World is that they do the driving. We don't worry about it. One of the things to think about is, again, thinking about what parks you like to be in the most, you'll probably want to choose a home resort that positions you close to those parks so that you have easy access. Maybe you have the easy ability to step out and take a break in the afternoon, take a nap, go for a swim, head back, whatever the case may be for you. Having access to the Disney Skyliner, having access to the monorail, having access to different boat services. They have water taxis and different things like that. So there are different ways that you can travel around property. And quite frankly, I think that most of those means, other than the bus, are pretty fun and special. And so we really value those. Oh, and of course, some of the resorts have the ability to walk, which is awesome. And actually, they just finished a new walking path from Grand Floridian directly to Magic Kingdom. I hear it's a bit of a long walk, but it is a great option if you don't want to wait for a monorail. Another thing to think about when it comes to transportation is that 2 of the DVC resorts at Disney World actually have internal bus systems that go in a loop around the resort. Yes, if you've ever stayed at, well, most of the moderate resorts, they actually have this exact type of system. They're huge, sprawling resorts. And so they're so far apart, you have an internal bus system that moves around before it takes you off to the parks. That can add a lot of extra time to the transportation. Also, they might be so spread out that you have to get on that bus in order to get back to the main building so that you can get food or other, shopping, main pool, things like that. So you have to think about whether that's a good fit for you. Those 2 resorts that have that are Saratoga Springs and Old Key West. Again, these are wonderful resorts, but we love to travel in the summer. And as you can imagine, being in Florida in July and having to wait at the bus stop longer and having to spend more time on the bus is not high on our list, or having a long walk back. So you can imagine that we actually prioritize resorts that have interior hallways that are air conditioned, because we know we're going to have a much more comfortable experience if we stay in those resorts. The next category to think about when choosing your home resort is going to be the room types or configurations. Not every single DVC resort has the same room types. Polynesian was really the big one that broke the mold. It has mostly studios, and then it has some of those overwater bungalows. If you like a 1-bedroom, don't get Polynesian, because 1-bedrooms don't exist at Polynesian. Another unique room type is a tower studio. That is only at the Riviera. That's a little 2-person studio. If that's really important to you, you've got to be at the Riviera as your home resort, because that's going to be hard to book. Some other unique features you could look at would be Old Key West. It was the original Disney Vacation Club resort, and it has the biggest rooms. They're huge. That's the resort that has full-sized washers and dryers instead of the stackable washers and dryers that the other resorts have. Another thing to note is that Riviera has a 2-bedroom that sleeps up to 10. That's kind of unique as well. So again, thinking about what your needs are, finding the resorts that fit those needs the best. So there are some other little special considerations you might want to think about. If you want to have boat access to Disney Springs, you're going to want to be at Old Key West or Saratoga Springs. If you want to be able to walk to Disney Springs, you can do that from Old Key West, but I hear it's a long walk, but you'll want to stay at Saratoga Springs in the preferred section. Some other little special things that you can find at different resorts. The Top of the World Lounge is located at Bay Lake Tower. Now, if you are staying on a Disney Vacation Club reservation, you actually can access Top of the World Lounge, except on special nights such as 4th of July and New Year's. But most of the time you can access that. But of course, you're going to access it and take advantage of it the most if you're staying at Bay Lake Tower. So again, these are all individual things. Think about what your needs are. Hey, be sure to comment below and tell us down here, what is your home resort? Which one are you thinking of buying? Or if it's just a dream, what's your dream home resort? Make sure that you check out some of our other links. We have resort tours and room tours that will help you make a decision. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time on The Magic and the Music. Bye, everybody.